My name is Kyle Blankenbiller, location manager here at Auman Funeral Homes in both Reading and Exeter Township. And with me today is very well-known local historian, Mr. George Miser.
The one who rose to the top by attrition?
That's it.
Yes,
that's it.
George M. Miser, the 9th County Historian.
We are now planning a send-off, a celebration of Stoneman. We're going to give him his day, and he will be buried this coming October. Prior to that, he will be in coordination with the 275th Anniversary Committee for the City of Reading. He will be involved in being recognized as an official participant. His ceremony will be an official part of the 275th anniversary, and he will be in the parade on October 1st. That's a Sunday, October 1st, correct? Correct, Sunday, October 1st. And then following the parade, we will have a week's worth of public viewings for Mr. Stoneman here at the funeral home, and they'll actually occur in this very parlor, which is original to the original parlor to Auman Funeral Homes. So we don't have time set for that yet, but there will be an afternoon period of time as well as an evening period of time, Monday through that Friday. And then that Saturday, the 7th, we will process up Penn Street in procession with Stoneman, and he will be going to our facility in Exeter Township. So in Exeter Township, we have a funeral home on one side of Neversink Road. The other side is a cemetery that's owned by our company, Forest Hills Memorial Park. And our initial plan is to maybe have him buried in the front yard of the funeral home, so he can still say that he's at Auman's, quote unquote. That's turning out to be a little bit difficult in the sense that that funeral home actually sits on a bed of limestone. So they're having difficulty probing that to get the depth that we would
So he'll
need.
be Stoneman Willie.
Basically, yes, yes, yeah. So we're looking at Plan B now, which is burial actually on the cemetery grounds at Forest Hills, a place of real prominence, and we have that site selected. So hopefully, either way, he will be buried on that Saturday. So the reason we're here today is simply because every year we get inquiries from major media news outlets, and we have been under the umbrella of Service Corporation International Dignity Memorial since 1991. So we're a nationwide network of funeral homes and cemeteries, and we're not technically allowed to speak to Stoneman and explain much about him, simply because they want our media department to do that. So we refer them to the media department in Houston, Texas, and they call. And then it kind of gets the conversation going in Houston, Texas as to, that's right, we have this mummy at our Reading Funeral Home since 1895. And why is that? Why has he not been buried yet? So a lot of discussion was had behind the scenes on that. And in 2020, we decided to move forward and give him his day. And that conversation began literally in the beginning of 2020. And in March, I think we all know, with COVID happening, everything was shut down. So we began that conversation again in 2021. The Delta variant hit, shut that down again. 2022, we just kind of didn't bother. So we now know with pretty much confidence this is something that will not get derailed because of a resurgence a resurgence, if you will, of a new variant. So we're pretty confident in the sense that we can now give Willie his day. So we don't like to see him leave. Certainly, he's a local legend and very endearing to all of us here. He's a big identity of our funeral home, and but we just think he finally just does deserve his day. So when you do view him, when you come in to view him, if you do, and all are welcome. He will be in a period piece of clothing that would have been befitting for a gentleman in 1895 to be buried in. And that has been secured. We will be receiving that through John Thomas. And John Thomas is the curator of the Jean London collection, locally based here in Reading. Jean London was a big fashion designer in Reading, also had children's programs back in, I believe, the late 50s, early 60s on some Philadelphia news stations. So just found out yesterday that is secured. It's at the dry cleaners right now. So we will be receiving that on Tuesday. And come in to view him for that public period of viewings, you will see him in this period piece of clothing. So really exciting stuff. To get the backing of the 275th anniversary committee was just amazing.
Well, Stoneman came to Reading with larceny on his mind. He came for a fireman's convention. And at firemen's conventions years ago, when the beer was flowing, there were lots of folks around who were good pickings. So that's why he came. He wound up in a boarding house in West Reading, and they pulled him out from under the bed, and he wound up in the Berks County Prison. While in prison, he attempted suicide with a large handkerchief, which unfortunately for him, I guess, split, and he did not commit suicide, but he did die very shortly thereafter, 128 years ago, the results probably of advanced alcoholism. No one claimed the body, and there wasn't much prospect of anyone coming to claim the body, so he wound up in the hands of Theodore Auman, who was a pioneer in his field because of his keen interest in embalming, which was a rather new concept at the time. Local funeral directors were still putting people on ice, and the old story is told about all the ways that they tried to preserve bodies. When the architect and the designer for the Union Canal passed away in South Carolina in the heat, they shipped him back to Lebanon County in a barrel of rum, which was not thrown away after he was removed, but that's a whole other story. Yeah, I know.
One that I don't know, but we want to really get into.
No, we won't get into that. Anyhow, so Stoneman really wound up here, and Theodore Auman was quite interested in the new formula that was sort of developed in Germany, from what I understand, and he was keenly interested in proper preservation. So he mixed his formula, and there was no written formula really. He experimented on his own and came up with a formula that he used for embalming Stoneman Willie. It was a rather strong formula, and it did more than regular embalming, and he wound up sort of petrified. I can answer the question about why he has been at Auman's for so many years. People tend to forget that Theodore Auman was quite interested in his experimentation. He was quite interested in being the best at embalming, and he wanted the body to remain as long as possible to see how successful his procedure was. He always used to say, "The vigil continues." And indeed, after his death in 1933, the vigil continued. That's why he's still here. They were following the original wishes of Theodore Auman, and that's why he is here.
And I think a bigger part of that too, to explain why that is because no one really stepped up to identify his remains.
Because no one ever knew.
Right.
It was never solved.
He gave a fake name upon his arrest, and he admitted that to a cellmate that it was a fake name.
And people were sure he wasn't William Penn.
Right. Well, there's confliction there, right? As far as we always knew him as having identified as William Penn, but if you look at historical records and much of the story behind Willie, it seems as though he actually identified initially as James Penn. So there's a lot of lore around him that is still very well unknown. And when we put these teasers out, which we didn't, they just kind of got out there, and which was fine because it started the conversation, but it created a number of phone calls here to the funeral home as far as DNA analysis and DNA and hair analysis being what it is today. That's been exhausted. Willie has been scanned. He had a hair analysis done back in, I believe,
2008.
Was it 2008? Yeah. And there's just no database from the late 1890s to compare anything to. So we know a lot about him and a lot we don't know. So what we will do, Mr. Miser and I are going to start working on the known history of Stoneman, what we know, and then the things that are kind of ancillary to his story, the things that can't be confirmed, that has been out in the public domain all these years. So we will have a lot more to come on this. There will be commemorative literature for his celebration that we will have professionally produced. We're hoping even to get possibly some national news coverage on it because of the uniqueness of his story. He literally is America's oldest known mummy, and he's here in Reading, of all places. So.
One of the best places.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're proud to have him, and as I said, we are not anxious to see him leave, but we've been getting a lot of positive feedback from the community saying, you know what, this is the right thing to do, and why hasn't this been done previously is more the sentiment that we're receiving versus the pushback. So timing has been perfect with the 275th anniversary. We couldn't be more proud to have that cooperation, certainly. And
It's a perfect marriage.
yeah, it absolutely is.
Yes.
Like I say, we were so disappointed in 2020 when I think we're all disappointed because of COVID, obviously, but we finally were moving forward with this and had some really neat ideas. We're starting to put the pieces together on it, and then COVID hit and derailed it. So for us, it deflated our balloon, certainly, because we were all, even though we don't want to see him go, we were all kind of anxious for him to have his day and do it the right way and really make this an event. But
A grand send-off.
yeah, and it's well overdue. It's well overdue. So you are welcome. The public is welcome to come in here anytime. Normal business hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 to view Willie. If you want to call us first, that's fine, but we will accommodate you if you do want to come in and view him prior to the public viewing. So anybody is welcome from here on out. If you do inquire with the funeral home, certainly our staff here is able to talk to this. If I'm not available, they can certainly assist you with information and planning and updates if that's something you have interest in.